in Asia, there's two long-running trends that are affecting the dynamics in the region. There's a set of dynamics around security in the region and economic developments in the region, and the question at the moment is to what extent are they reinforcing, to what extent are they competitive dynamics? Traditionally in Asia, it had been perceived perhaps a decade ago that the economic trends in the region, greater convergence, greater interdependence, greater cooperation between countries in the region would impact helpfully on security trends, that it would moderate security competition and potentially even convert into security cooperation, cooperative security arrangements that might mitigate some of the historical tensions and territorial disputes. A few years ago, I think some of those ambitions were scaled down, but people at least believed that the economic and security relationships in the region could exist in parallel, that even though there may be increasing defence budgets for many of the key states in the region, even though there may be some sort of minor confrontations over territorial disputes in the region, that the importance of maintaining some of these economic ties would ultimately reduce the degree to which conflict in the region took off, and would be that the security issues would not bleed into the economic sphere. In the last couple of years, the concern has been that the security issues in the region have started to negatively impact the economic developments and integration. In particular, you've seen on China's part, but to an extent from other states in the region too, utilising economic instruments for security ends, which in the case of Japan involved the cut-off of rare earth minerals. In the case of the Philippines, it involved restricting certain import sectors, and we've seen it spill over even into public protests and demonstrations against Japanese businesses in China, against Chinese businesses in Vietnam. And the result of that has been the concern about dependency and interdependence in the region has started to lead to states in the region hedging more economically as well as their traditional security hedging. And it's had already a significant impact on for instance, Japanese investments in China, which FDI into China fell by 20% last year and a further 40% in the first half of this year. And so what you're starting to see with some of the economic dynamics in the region now is that the expectation of constantly deepening interdependence, that interdependence is a source of security, that's starting to rebalance. As states start to hedge economically in terms of their risks and their exposures to each other in the region, it's starting to play directly into economic dynamics. Japan, on a sort of countervailing trend, is significantly increasing its investments in Southeast Asia, which have doubled over the last couple of years, and similarly with India. So what you're beginning to see now is the security and the economic trends in the region are converging around who your friends are, what appetite there is for political risk, and even though you will still have a lot of the economic integration that has been going on over the last decades in the region, I think you're going to see more states in the region trying to reduce the risks of mutual exposure, and security dynamics in the region starting to play in more difficult ways on some of the economic trends.